I'd like to introduce first off to begin our superintendent, Sam Jarman, who will then lead us into today's events.
Good morning. It's a great sight to have this many teachers in one location who are dedicated to getting better. And this is what I have said to those as I go out and meet in our different cluster meetings. We really do want to focus in on improving student learning. And the way that I believe, and hopefully most of us in this room believe we can do that, is by giving you the tools, the information, and the help that you need to become better as teachers. Better teachers are going to help improve the learning of our students. And so, with that being said, I am just here really this morning to say thank you for the effort that you're making, working in some cases in some difficult situations. I appreciate that effort that you're putting forth on a daily basis to meet our kids' needs. I want to tell the staff who have worked hard to make sure that today will be successful for you, want to tell them thank you. And know that the effort that's being made on the part of our curriculum department and others who are in the district cabinet and on staff, I appreciate their efforts to continue to move forward, again, with that effort to say, what is it that we can do to improve student learning? So with that, we do have some outstanding people that are here with us today. I look forward to being able to be here for a short part of the time, and then I have another assignment that I have to go to, but I do want to again express my appreciation and thanks to each one of you for the role that you play on a daily basis to help our kids to learn and to be preparing for whatever it is that they're going to encounter once they leave our school system after they graduate. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Thank you, Superintendent Jarman. We are fortunate to have a man like Superintendent Jarman in charge of our district. He's passionate about students and their learning and very caring about the adults who serve those children. My name is Shane Farnsworth. I am a secondary supervisor, work with the junior high and high school principals. Prior to that, I was a principal. Prior to that, assistant principal. And then in my earliest days in Alpine School District, I was a language arts teacher. The best content out there. My wife and I have 6 children. 4 of them have graduated from schools in Alpine School District. All 4 are AF High School graduates. Do we have any AF High School teachers in here? Wonderful. So my topic today, the assignment that I got, was to talk about Alpine School District's vision of learning. And I was asked to answer some questions. Why did it come about? How did it come about? What is it? And where is it going from here? So we're going to spend about 15 minutes trying to answer those questions to give you a sense of what it is, where it came from, and where it's going. You'll see a graphic over here on your right that kind of depicts that. We'll break that apart here in a few minutes. So first of all, why did it come about? These slides up here represent what we would call a theory of action that is substantiated in the literature and experienced in our practice. What we try to accomplish as educators is student learning. That's what we work for. That's why we have a district. We go after student learning. That's our primary area of focus. Our mission, our core technology, however you want to describe it, that's why we exist, to affect student learning. And the research in our experience has shown us that the primary school factor influencing student learning is instruction. What you do every day, that has the primary impact on student learning. And as we consider that, what is the educator work? What do teachers do? What do educators do to affect learning? Well, the research says if you focus on these strategies, defining essential outcomes, creating a content and a curriculum that achieves those outcomes, instructing those outcomes within these strategies, assessing the learning of students, creating a learning environment that's safe, collaborative, and conducive to their learning, and giving them feedback, that you will achieve student learning. The administrative work, what the research says is administrators also affect student learning, but they do it indirectly. They don't have a direct effect on student learning. They affect it by affecting the conditions that influence student learning. And the research on student learning says that what's the work that administrators should do? They should create a vision, establish a collaborative and safe culture, build capacity in others, improve instruction, and leverage resources. Well, these are known as the 5 domains of administrative work. So as a cabinet, as a K-12 group, our responsibility is to build the capacity of principals to support teachers in doing their work to create student learning. So as we got together as a cabinet and K-12 group, and we said, if this is what we expect principals to know and be able to do, all of those domains focus on student learning. Well, we ought to have a fairly clear understanding of what student learning is in Alpine School District. So we went to work on a vision or a definition of student learning. This is kind of the why or where it came from. We wanted to get clear about what student learning is in Alpine School District. We wanted to create coherence around that definition so we could all move forward in achieving that vision. Leithwood and his colleagues, you've read the bottom lines there, that leadership does matter, but it's second to teaching in terms of school-related factors that influence student learning. From that research, it's clear that you have to understand or define what learning is and how you're going after it. So, how did it come about? I want you to get an elbow partner. First of all, you're going to take about a minute and just type in on your notes, write down on a piece of paper, what is your vision of student learning? If someone were to come and talk to you and say, okay, you're an educator, what is learning? What are you trying to accomplish with your students? What do you expect them to learn? How would you define that? You're an educator. Your product or what you're trying to produce is student learning. What is student learning? So take just a minute and define that.
Doesn't buzz or squawk.
I wasn't pushing the button. Okay, take a minute, make sure you share that definition with a partner. You hear someone else's definition, and they have the opportunity to hear your definition. Okay, let's come back together. Take about 15 seconds and finish up your discussion. We do not have time to hear all of your definitions, but if we started to surface those definitions, I think we would find some similarities, we would find some differences, but we could probably come to a fairly strong consensus on what we mean by student learning and how we define that. Most of our definitions would probably articulate something about what we expect students to know. That when we're learning, there's knowledge that we're acquiring. There's some information that we need to get and have in order to learn. In addition to that, there would be some skills, some things that we need to be able to do. It's not just about knowing, it's about doing. Developing a skill set to be able to accomplish, gather information, articulate that knowledge back out. But it's also about becoming, about dispositions, about character that we're developing. So the cabinet went through a similar process. What do we expect students to know, and be able to do, and become as a result of their experience in Alpine School District? Or how do we define learning? If learning is our core technology, it's what we're chasing, it's our noble cause, what is that? We came up with a working definition, took that to administrators for feedback. They gave feedback, we revised it, we took it back out and revised it again. And then it started to hold still. We felt comfortable with it. During this whole process, we also looked out at the research. What does research say learning is? What is the industry telling us that our students need to know, be able to do, and become to be successful in the 21st century? So this is what it is. The definition is really from, you could say learning is the essential knowledge, skills, and dispositions in each content area and the fundamental capacities of collaboration, critical thinking, communication, creativity, citizenship, and character. It becomes our vision when we put those first four words in front of it. That's what we're striving for, is for our students to acquire the essential knowledge, skills, and dispositions in each content area and those fundamental skills or capacities. What we got out of the research was these 4 C's: collaboration, critical thinking, communication, and creativity. That's what the researchers, theorists are telling us. If students have these skills, they can be successful in their next adventure, whether that is college, a career, technical training, life. Those are skill sets that students need to be successful regardless of the industry. And public education has always had a public purpose. We're not just creating students so they can be employees. We're creating citizens who have character and understand what it means to live in a democratic way of life. So that is the definition. You'll see some, what I would say are essential words in the definition. First, it's about essential knowledge. We can't cover all knowledge. We have to narrow that down to say what is essential for students to know, be able to do, and become. And we define that in terms of knowledge, skills, and dispositions in each content area. As a language arts teacher, there are knowledge, skills, and dispositions within that content area that you want students to acquire. The same in science and math and the other content areas that we have in our secondary schools. Each content area has their set of knowledge, skills, and dispositions. But in addition to those, there are overarching skills and dispositions. Those are the 4 C's and the 2 C's of citizenship and character. So we'll break this down a little bit more. You'll see this often displayed as this circle graphic with student learning in the middle, ensuring all students acquire essential knowledge, skills, and dispositions. And then we start to define these a little bit further. Knowledge is that understanding that students acquire from their content areas. Skills are the capacities of collaboration, communication, creativity, and critical thinking. And then our dispositions are citizenship and character. So there's both the narrative version of it and the graphical representation of it. Now, the next question is, where is this going? This should serve as a guide for us. I've recently finished reading David McCullough's book on the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright. It's a fascinating read. They did not have a map for manned flight. They had a vision and believed that man could fly. They didn't know how that was possible, but they believed it was possible, and they sought to figure it out. They developed a map after they did their work, or as they did their work. They started out with a compass or a vision. If this is where we want to go, we're not quite sure how to get there, but we'll figure it out along the way. We have a compass. We'll have the map once we're done. Lewis and Clark, they didn't set out to discover Northwest Territory with a map. They knew there was a river out there, the Missouri River. They knew the general direction they were going, and they knew some waypoints along the way. They figured out their map after they had gone on the journey, or as they went on the journey. So the same thing is for us. Our vision of learning is not a map. It doesn't give detailed instructions of how we're going to instruct students. In Alpine School District, we have a process. We have the collaborative process, the PLC process. So here's our process, or some waypoints along the journey. You will notice that nothing has changed in our process. We still seek to establish essential learning outcomes. That's the work you've been doing forever as a teacher, and for the last 12 to 13 years as a professional learning community. We also need to develop assessments to measure learning. Are our students acquiring the essential knowledge, skills, and dispositions that we expect them to do? And if they're not, we need to intervene. And if they have those skills and knowledge and dispositions, then we need to expand that for them and give them additional opportunities to extend their learning. So what is different about Alpine School District? Because of the vision for learning, we have defined that learning is knowledge, skills, and dispositions. We're still committed to the PLC process about defining essentials, assessing those essentials, intervening and expanding on those. We have a compass. We have some waypoints along the way. What we're asking you to do, all of us to do, is to go a little bit deeper in that learning, to not just keep our learning at the knowledge level. Our students, your children, my children, deserve to go deeper in their learning, to go beyond knowledge, to acquire skills and to acquire dispositions. When you think about what you want for your own children as a result of a K-12 experience in Alpine School District, I'm pretty sure your expectation would go beyond knowledge. You would want your children to develop the skills and dispositions they need to live a meaningful life in the future. That's our vision for Alpine School District, and together we will work hard to accomplish that mission. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Shane. I'm part of a great team. When it comes to being a secondary supervisor, my name is Rhonda Bromley, and I work with Shane Farnsworth and Theron Murphy. And we're doing things a little bit different this year than what has been done in the past, where we have the opportunity to work with all of the junior highs and high schools, and we are a 7-12 team. So I'm excited about that and really grateful for all of you and for all that you do. So thank you. Thank you for being here and wanting to continuously improve when it comes to our great profession. I want to introduce, I know the superintendent and Daniel both referred to them, but I want to introduce them by name, our team that put today together. And you can imagine how much work it took and how long they have been doing this. So I know you're all spread out everywhere, but if you could please stand up when I say your name. So we appreciate, and stay standing, starting with Mari Braithwaite right here in the front, Kathy Larson, Steve Jackson, Ashley Russin, don't be shy, stand up, guys. Daniel Potter, Rachel Thompson, and Elaine Holbert. So wherever you are, stand up. And guys, let's give them a hand. They've worked hard on today. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mari. I've spent several years working here in Alpine School District, and I'm really passionate and loyal to our district. And just like Shane, I started as a student. I graduated from Alpine School District schools and then became a teacher, an administrator, and have had the opportunity to work in the district office. And one of the things I'm pretty passionate about is, when I moved to the office in American Fork, the district office, I all of a sudden heard people refer to the district this, the district that. And I realized, okay, have I moved to the other side or something, and had the opportunity of moving from the district office back to a school and then back. And want you guys to know that I feel very, very strongly about the fact that I am not the district, and Superintendent Jarman is not the district. Our school board members are not the district. We are the district. We are all Alpine School District. Students, teachers, parents, administrators, it takes all of us working together to help our students be successful. Each of us plays a different role in that, but each of us has a very important role to play in that. You guys are the ones that are with the students every single day. We have 39,000 secondary students, so junior high and high school students in Alpine School District. And those of us that work in the district office, our whole job is to help you in the schools, because you're the ones, again, working with the students and with them every day. And thank you for that. I had a unique opportunity in my career of having some of the people that were my teachers then become colleagues of mine, and then even became faculty members when I was their principal. I've been a principal at a high school for the last few years. And what a great opportunity for me, and a great reminder about how much of a difference you make. Those 3 teachers aren't the only 3 teachers that made a difference in my life, but those 3 did make a very important difference in my life, starting with Robert Lauder, my 7th grade science teacher, when he was at American Fork Junior High, and I was just this awkward little teenager that was very intimidated by science because I didn't think I was very smart. And he helped me understand that I could learn. And I appreciate Robert, and it was fun becoming his principal as he was on my staff when I was a high school principal for the last few years. I remember Rebecca Gardner. At the time, she was Rebecca Crandall at American Fork Junior High, and she had long hair and she had beads in her hair, and she was so cool. She was so groovy. And I just really appreciated her and her creativity and teaching me that learning could be fun. I loved that she too was on my staff at Lone Peak High School as a faculty member when I was the principal. And then last of all, Pam Beckstrand, when I was at American Fork High School and going through some challenges with my family, some challenges financially. And she taught me what really mattered in life, and maybe not having the fanciest clothes or even having the fanciest house or a car to drive or whatever really didn't matter. And I love and appreciate her for that. And it was fun for me to have her also on the staff when I was the principal at Lone Peak and see full circle the people that were my mentors and continue to be my mentors through my administrative career. You make a difference. I have our youngest son, our youngest of 6, is a 6th grader at Highland Elementary. So those of you that are at Mountain Ridge Junior High, you've got a 1-year break from the Bromley family. We're preparing you for Bryson because he'll be there next year. So we're gearing you up. So a 1-year break. But I'll never forget a few years ago, Bryson was in a class with all of his little friends in the neighborhood, and they were all the youngest child. And you know what that means. So I remember feeling for this teacher because she had them all in the same class, and I thought, oh, this poor thing, but she was the sweetest thing and just loved them all. Well, I'll never forget one day Bryson wasn't feeling well, and I said, buddy, I don't think you're going to be able to go to school today. And he said, Mom, I have to go to school. Mrs. Beck will be so sad if I'm not there. And I thought, oh, I love that he thinks that, because I know she's probably like, yes, one less person. But I thought, you know what, isn't that the way we want all of our students to feel? You know, you guys work with teenagers, and of course they don't think that way, do they? They don't care if you love them or not. Wrong. They do care, and they need you, and they need you to care about them and to love them. I'm a little bit sentimental over the last few days because we've had a couple of our secondary students, 2 of our 39,000 students over the last few days that have taken their lives in 2 separate schools in our district. And it has just helped me re-put things in perspective and just reminded me, and I just want to remind you what really matters. These kids need you to love them and to care about them, even more so than teaching them math or English or science. They need to know that they are loved. And I know that you're doing that every single day, and I want to thank you for that. So great job. Teachers, we have 3 amazing panelists that are with us today from the professional world, and they're here to help us understand how we can better help our students as they leave our schools and enter the workforce and enter society or enter higher education. So I appreciate them for being here, and I appreciate those of you teachers that submitted questions for us to ask them today. So I'm going to introduce them one by one, starting with Tammy Pfeiffer. If you could come on up, Tammy. Tammy is the education advisor to Governor Gary Herbert. She advises the governor on education policy and other public and higher education issues. She also assists our great governor as he leads his Educational Excellence Commission. Previously, Tammy served for 4 years on the Utah State Board of Education, and we appreciate your service on that board. For 10 years before that, she was a teacher at Utah State University, and she actually prepared future teachers. So some of you may remember and may have had Tammy as a teacher. She helped oversee student teachers, specifically special education, and she coordinated research activities while she was at Utah State. While she was raising her family in Logan, Tammy served on the city council in Logan, and she was also involved in a lot of other community things, one of them being PTA. As her own children were going through school, she was a very active member of the PTA. She was always an advocate for teachers, and she continues to be an advocate for teachers. She's passionate about education. She's passionate about improving the experiences so that our students can be successful. Please welcome Tammy Pfeiffer. Thank you. Now I'd like to invite up John R. Taylor. Come on up, John Taylor. John is an assistant dean at Southern Utah University. For 4 years, he's been the faculty advisor for academic affairs at SUU. He also oversees the general education program. He served on the Utah System of Higher Education's General Education Task Force, which guides the state when it comes to all education issues. He also serves as a faculty advisor for the Association of American Colleges and Universities, and he's the president of the Utah Science Teachers Association. There we go, science teachers out there. John received his bachelor's degree from Southern Utah University in biology. Then he received his master's degree from Brigham Young University in zoology, and he received his doctorate degree from Syracuse University. Please welcome John R. Taylor. And last of all, I'd like to welcome Brian Burwer. Come on up, Brian. Brian is the Public Affairs Director from IM Flash Technologies, and we all know how much IM Flash has done for Alpine School District and for education. We are so grateful for you. Thank you so much for all you've done. Brian is a 30-year veteran of Intel Corporation and IM Flash Technologies. This was a joint venture that was formed by Intel and Micron for the purpose of world-class memory products. He's currently the Director of Public Affairs and has held numerous management positions, including things in manufacturing, in human resources, and program management. He's managed teams internationally in places like Costa Rica, Malaysia, and Ireland. Brian represents IM Flash and represents them on multiple STEM committees and advisory boards throughout Utah. These include engineering and computer science departments at different universities, at Utah State University, and he's also on the board of managers with UCAS. Please welcome Brian Burwer. Okay, panelists, I just want you to look out among the audience here and know that you are looking at hundreds of language arts teachers, science teachers, math teachers, counselors, and administrators in Alpine School District, and want you to know that you will not find finer educators in the entire state of Utah than what you're looking at right here. So thank you for that. Teachers, like I said, many of you submitted questions for our panelists, and thank you for doing that. Some of the questions I'll be directing specifically to one of the three individuals, but some of them will be directed at all of them. And we would love to hear from all of them or one or two of them, depending on what your interest level is in the question. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So our first question is for all three of you. So again, you're welcome to fight over the microphone and decide who's going to go first here. What communication skills are the most important in the future for our students? And if you could please answer all of your questions, obviously with a perspective. I'm sure you've noticed that we have someone from the government, so a political viewpoint here. We've got someone from higher education, with the Associate Dean from SUU, and then someone from industry. So tell us what communication skills are important for our students to know as they leave our educational institution.
Thank you. And as if it weren't already intimidating enough, you had to remind me that I'm in front of a bunch of educators and principals and teachers. I'm always intimidated when I speak to educators because I think you're awesome. And I pretty much worship the ground you walk on. So thank you for what you do. I'm very excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the skills that we're looking for our students to have as they leave public education. And I'll give you my perspective from what we hear every day in the governor's office, what the governor hears as he meets with business leaders, and what I hear as I meet with some of our business leaders and also our educators at technical colleges and higher education. We need students who can communicate both written and verbally. We need students who can see both sides of an issue and who can judge between good information and misinformation. We need students who can have those communication skills that can be used in collaborative situations. When we look at surveys that employers fill out on what they're looking for in employees, future employees, the top skills they list are communication skills and collaboration skills. Students that can work together in teams and problem solve and can toss ideas back and forth and look at what's worked in the past and what's not working and what they need to do differently. And so those verbal communication skills are really key. But also we look at companies who are high-tech companies, and you'll hear about that, but they still need people that can explain in writing what that company does, who can take that information, analyze, synthesize it, and put it in writing in such a way that customers or potential customers can understand what it is that this high-tech company does. And so those are the type of skills that I hear about on a very regular basis from some of our partners in the governor's office and out in the community.
Yeah, I would echo that we hear the same thing, and so as an institution of higher ed, we need to make sure that our students are prepared to go out and fill those jobs, be able to communicate in those ways. But we look at the problem in a slightly different way. At least at SUU, this has really taken off in the last couple of years, where students are coming to us and they're able to, let's say, write, and they can write really well because they've had excellent language arts teachers, but they've never written in a context other than what they find in their language arts classes. So they're not writing enough about science or quantitative literacy, and then when we try to introduce it, we hear things from the students like, well, why am I writing in my biology class? This is an English class. And so you do kind of this head slap moment and you go, life is English. Life is a communication class. We have to be able to
Go English.
we have to be able to create more bridges, and that's why I took that role at SUU on integrative learning. Is we have to start taking down these silos and getting teachers mixing more, and that includes the arts. I am convinced that any good team that's working on a problem needs to have an artist with them, because artists have the ability to see things in a very reduced sort of way and a more elegant way. And they bring a perspective that nobody else seems to bring. So I'll add those two pieces, although you may not think of artist communication, but I do.
Thank you. Let me just add one more thing, and if you can visualize in our office area where we have 400 or 500 people sitting, it used to be you had your own cubicle. We've cut those cubicles in half. And so the collaboration between people and the engineering, and I agree with the written, but the verbal communication, now you're sitting at a desk about this high, you have your teammates around you, and they're constantly communicating on a problem. So written is important, same with the verbal communication skills in business.
Okay, thank you. Let's give him a hand. That was great. Okay, we're going to direct this next question specifically to Brian, again, a representative here from IM Flash, and he sat here while we were reviewing the definition of learning and how we are talking about knowledge, skills, and dispositions. So Brian, are soft skills like empathy, creativity, or interpersonal skills as important as knowing content or having expertise for a particular job?
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Let me set this up by kind of talking about IM Flash, where we're at. So if you haven't heard of 3D Crosspoint, you will soon from our two parent companies. This is a new product that we've came out. We're the only ones in the world who make this product, so it's right here in Lehi, Utah. We're very proud of that. So that product, and we change technology about every 18 months. So that creativity needs to be there. Those soft skills, when it comes to having integrity, a good culture fit, they need to be able to have those things. And the interpersonal skills to be able to communicate, look beyond what they see today at our new products and new technologies and new ways of using it is very critical. We're going to be on the forefront for many years here in Lehi.
Great, thank you. Let's give him a hand. Okay,
Both
this
John
next-
and I would like to add
Oh,
to that,
absolutely.
if
Yes,
that's
thank you,
okay.
Tammy.
What I hear, and I agree 100% with Brian, what I hear when I go out is employers that say, I can teach, and fine-tune those technical skills, but I have a really hard time teaching kids to show up on time and to have respect and to be a hard worker and those kind of things. Those soft skills are critically important. And so we hear that on a regular basis, that I can teach and fine-tune technical skills. And we're addressing actually some of that through some work-based learning initiatives. But what they can't teach, or what's difficult to teach, are those soft skills.
And if I could add one thing, the reason why, so hopefully I'm in sync with you, the reason why those soft skills are so difficult, it's not that they're hard necessarily to teach, they're very difficult to assess. And in this assessment-driven climate, if you're having students work in teams and you always have the little Jimmy or Sarah that just doesn't do anything, and so you're like, well, how do I assess this and hurt their grade but not too much? And when the rubber hits the road, it's very difficult, but I can tell you that's what we're hearing from industry, is the soft skills are more important in many cases than the content.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. I'm going to direct this next one to Tammy. Tammy, how can we increase the public's trust and respect for public education? What might this trust, respect, and support look like?
Well, I have a 45-minute presentation on that that I'm not going to give right now. I think that what I've spent the last 4 years doing is trying to change the narrative on public education. That's what it takes to increase the public trust in education. And that narrative that you hear now is based on a lot of misinformation. Things like we're just throwing money at education, that we don't get the best and the brightest in education, which is an absolute falsehood. We have data to prove otherwise. Not only data, hard data, but we have a room full of educators like you. We hear things like teachers work part-time and they get paid a lot of money for that part-time job that you have 9 months out of the year. I hear this. And as hard as I've tried over 4 years to change this narrative, there is still fixed in people's mind this impression of a real easy job that people get into because they couldn't get into another major and they make a lot of money for this part-time work that they do. Absolutely false. And it's hard for public to have confidence in a system they don't understand. And it's hard to fight the false narratives that are out there nationally that seep into even Utah. And so what we've been trying to do is, first of all, get true stories, get true facts out there. And those of you that especially teach in English and writing know how hard it is to change public perception based on facts. Facts often don't matter. And so what we have echoed what Superintendent Sid Dixon talks to teachers about, and that is telling their stories, telling your story, telling about the joy that you have in teaching, telling about why you went into teaching, telling about how difficult it was to get into the teacher ed program at Utah State. We used to have so many applicants in our teacher prep program that we only could accept about half or 2/3 of those that came in. And those were teachers with very high GPAs, very high ACT scores. Talk about why you stay in teaching. Talk about the good things, and then talk about the challenges, the challenge of having your own family and having work hours that are 10, 12-hour days on a regular basis. Not to put a negative spin on it, but saying, I love what I do, but here are the challenges for me. And as we tell these stories and tell the successes of what's happening with the students that we work with and how rewarding that is for you, but how it's challenging when policymakers and lawmakers don't see what those challenges are, that it's turning the profession into one that people don't want to be in anymore, unfortunately. So I think restoring public confidence is going to take a lot of narrative and a lot of changing a false narrative and having teachers and educators tell your stories and tell them in a format and in a way that that lets people look into your world, into our world, and want to make a difference.
Excellent. And Tammy, let me just add, I know that most of you already know this, but Tammy's doing a great job when it comes to helping earn public trust. And we definitely have a fan in Governor Herbert and in Tammy when it comes to public education. So thank you for all that you're doing, Tammy, with that. Okay. Okay, this next question specifically for John and Brian. You see our students right after they graduate, whether they're entering your workforce or entering your university. Tell us about the characteristics of today's high school graduates in comparison to students 10 to 20 years ago. So compare students today to what they were like 10 to 20 years ago.
I would say that it's from the student's perspective, they haven't changed too much. What has changed more are the parents. I wasn't expecting applause on that one. So I must have hit a nerve. But we have parents who are masquerading as their children, getting onto our banner software. They're still helicoptering well after their children are 18. And that has long-term impacts, especially in that freshman year when students are leaving home for the first time. They're seeing kind of what it's like to be out on their own, and all of a sudden the rules are gone, and in many cases there's a lot of rules, and the students really struggle that freshman year. I think they struggle more so now than they did in the past. In our efforts to try to help them, we have to spend a lot more energy trying to keep things feeling small at institutions that are ever growing larger. And we have to really keep our finger on the pulse of the student body, especially in that freshman to sophomore retention year. And so if I could say anything about the students are always trying. They're always doing their very best. But it's up to us as parents to help our students get the experiences that they're going to need early on in life. And I'm not totally sure that the best way to do that is overscheduling them.
Okay, yes, thank you. And before we pass the microphone to Brian, John, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, if that's okay. You said we as parents, and you mentioned parents, and you got a chuckle from the crowd here. What is the role of parents when it comes to education of students?
Well, there's another 45 minutes.
Okay, try to do it in 1 to 2 minutes.
Okay, in just a short amount of time. I think it's the exact same role as our roles as educators. And that is, see, and learning's a really weird thing because as educators, we don't have control over that. You can't force someone to learn something. It's a very personal thing. And all we can do as parents and teachers is create an environment where it's most likely going to happen. And if we're putting our energies as parents and teachers in the wrong places, we can't really expect learning to happen. So I guess that's what I would say our roles as parents and educators is as cheesy as this sounds, love has got to be the first one. Mm-hmm. You actually have to care about your children as parents. Just kidding. Of course that's going to come until they're teenagers and then it tests that. But you've got to love them, and you've got to love your job, because if you don't love your job, you're not going to put your heart and soul into it. And if you're not going to do that, then you've lost half the battle.
Excellent, and thank you, John. Isn't it interesting to hear that some of the same challenges, he mentioned helicopter parents and, parents that just want so bad for their kids to be successful that even at the university level, they have some of the same challenges. And so thank you for reminding us it's about love and working in partnership with parents. So Brian, let's come back to the original question when it talked about the characteristics of students today as they're graduating compared to 10 to 20 years ago.
Yeah, let me touch on this parent thing if I can. So for the last 4 years, we've been going up in the summer to Heber to talk to the counselors, and I think there's some school teachers there as well. And we usually have a pretty packed classroom. We teach that 3 times, but the thing that's missing is the parents. And I wish there was a forum, if you know of a forum that I Am Flash or we could come and talk to parents, it would be awesome to be able to give the message that we give to, the same message we give to you, to give to parents. I think it's important for them to hear us from the industry. But anyway, on to the characteristics. If you, I look back at 20 to 30 years in my life and kind of look at where I was in school, and you look, we didn't have all of the technology, all of that data available, right? If you need to replace something on your car, what do? You Google it. And you can pretty much get some instructions on how to do that. So there's so much data out there that the students today have an opportunity, and they do. They take all that data in, they can be able to analyze it and be able to make some sense of it, and they bring that into their higher education, into the workforce. And I think that's very important, and I'll talk more about that here as we go forward, but that data itself, and to be able to be distinct and get us a solution quickly is what needs to happen. So I think there's that change and evolution that we've seen.
Good, excellent. Thank you, Brian, and thank you for talking about the parents. Isn't it interesting that even at the industry level, they're thinking of ways to include parents? As he mentioned, he wished that he could include parents in this training that he does. So a great reminder to all of us that, you know what, we work together with parents, we partner with parents, but our roles are very different. The role of the teacher and the role of the parent are very different, but we do need to work together. So thank you for that. Tammy, tell us what the best ways are for teachers to make their voices heard when it comes to policy and decision makers.
That's a great question. Don't raise your hand, but I want you to think of this question. How many of you know who your senator is and who your representative is in the Utah legislature? I don't want you to raise your hand in case someone doesn't know. Yeah, you're going to know by the end of the day. Number one, you need to know who your representatives are in the Utah State Legislature. You need to know who your representative is on the state school board. You need to know who your local school board representative is. One thing that I have encountered, not so much recently, is as we're trying to change the narrative, policymakers who unfortunately would sometimes dismiss the voice of a teacher. It's like if they came to a committee meeting and said, I'm a teacher, and it's like, oh, well, they're a teacher. They're out to protect their profession. That same teacher could get up to the table and say, I'm a parent of 3 children. My children go to Alpine School District, and here's what I'm concerned about. Immediately, your status, again, not so much recently, but in the past few years, your status would immediately shoot clear up because you're a parent. You're a parent and you're talking about these things, not just a teacher. So my advice is find out who your policymakers are, speak with the voice of a teacher, absolutely, but also speak with the voice of a parent. The things that you're concerned about, those of you that are parents or grandparents, the things that you're concerned about in your classroom, as a teacher, certainly you have similar concerns as a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle, and sometimes that message carries a little bit further or more quickly than being a teacher and speaking about those kind of things. Find a way to engage regularly with those legislators. I have been an elected official for 12 years, and I relied on some of those constituents who emailed me regularly and said, hey, I want you to know what's going on, in my part of Logan, or on this particular issue. And those became people that I actually, initially you get those emails and you're going, oh, is this gonna be one of those constituents that, you know, lights up my inbox all the time. But when I changed my perspective, and it's like, they've got some expertise in the area of small business owners. And I would actually go to those people. They would become my go-to people whenever certain issues came up that I would have to vote on. And the same thing when I was on the state school board. So become that constituent. Become that constituent who tries to develop a relationship with your legislator, with your state school board member. Send emails. Thank them for things that go well. Part of my background in special education is applied behavior analysis, and why people do the things they do and how to get them to do more of the things we want them to do. Well, part of that stems from having this relationship and then letting people know what they're doing right. Thank you for voting on this particular issue. Thank you for what you said at that committee meeting. Thank you for how you're supporting teachers. And then when things come up that you want them to vote a certain way, let them know. Let them know. Send them an email. It's hard to complain about things when we haven't. Is that my time?
No.
It's hard to complain about things when we haven't taken the time to let people know, especially policymakers, how we feel. And we can complain about our legislators or our policymakers all we want, but if we haven't stepped up, developed a relationship, let them know how what they're doing affects us, then we don't have a lot of room to complain about that. So that would be my advice.
Good. I love that you said that, Tammy, because we as educators know how that feels. We're the first ones to hear when something goes wrong or when something's happened with a student and a parent's mad or something's going on, and we get those emails or we get those phone calls. And isn't it wonderful and refreshing when we get that email that just says, thank you for what you're doing. You're doing such a good job. It's like, so it sounds like our political leaders are the same way. They need to hear from us, and they need to hear that we appreciate the things they're doing.
Let me tell you something that you can do tonight when you get home. There is a survey that is out by the Utah Teacher Hope Fellows. It's a teacher group, Hope Street Teacher Fellows, and they're trying to get all Utah teachers to fill out this very quick survey. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes. I am going to repost it on Twitter today. But contact Rhonda or send me an email or shoot the superintendent. Should I send you an email? He's going, wait a minute. I will send a link that someone could post, and they're just looking for teachers' voices, and they're asking for things like, what makes it difficult? What is it that's stopping you from doing more that you could do that we could change at the policy level at the state? And if everyone in this room, how many, maybe 300, 400 people, I mean, that's a huge thing that you could do to make your voice heard, because all of these surveys are going to be, the survey results will be disseminated to Utah policymakers. That's a real easy way to get involved.
Great. So let's let our voices be heard, and we'll make sure that we get that link out to everyone. So thank you for that, Tammy. We're going to refrain from applause until the very end. So we're going to direct this next question to John. So John, why are our successful high school graduates experiencing so much anxiety during their college age years? And what can we do as secondary teachers to better prepare them for life after high school?
Well, what we see in the data is, as I stated earlier, the freshman to sophomore year seems to be big. The fall-to-fall retention rates are something that we take very, very serious. And so what that means is students who come through our doors in the fall of their freshman year, how many of them come back their sophomore year? And without naming names as far as the Utah system of higher ed is concerned, there are some colleges within our state that those numbers are down in the 30 to 40%. That means 70 to 60% of our students who come through our doors as freshmen never come back. And that scares me. We've been working very hard, and I know the other schools are working very, very hard. The demographics are a little bit different for each of the institutions of higher ed within the state, and we each have our own problems with those demographics, and there's ways to reach out and help those students. I can speak about SUU personally. We're aiming to get that number as high as we possibly can, and that our retention rate, and that also will then lead to higher graduation rates, which we obviously want. We want our students to be successful. We don't want them to have anxiety to such a high degree that it forces them to leave our university, because then we fail them. Now, we've got to create a little bit of anxiety, because that's good. You've got to have some stress there, but it's finding that balance. And one of the interesting things, so I'll toot my own horn just a little bit. One of the interesting things that we have seen over the last 10 years is when you look at the index score of college students. So what that is it's a measure of both their ACT or SAT score with their GPA, their high school GPA. And if you look at retention rates and graduation rates, in respect with everything else, including index scores, the thing that tends to tell us whether or not a student is going to be successful or not is that index score. That's it. So if they've got a relatively high GPA and a relatively high ACT, they're probably going to be just fine in college. Now, that being said, good for the state of Utah is right around 50%, which I still don't think is all that great. But recently, what we tried at SUU with general education to meet the needs of those freshman students is we came up with a fully integrated system of GE. So we take a group of students, usually 35 to 42 students, and we take 7 faculty members that represent all of the GE areas, and those 7 faculty members completely integrate their content and around a big theme. And we lead the students through their freshman year that way. We've done this for 3 years, so we're starting our 4th. Our retention rates are right around 90%. Now I'm not putting this out there like, hey, send all your students to SUU. What it tells me is that a highly collaborative, integrative educational system that focuses on the small, simple elegance of a classroom will allow teachers to do what they do best. Get creative, come up with neat projects, and have fun with those students. And that works. Apparently that works, because it's enough at SUU that we're going, maybe we should spend more money in this. Instead of having GE courses that have 3,000 students in it, maybe we should focus on integrative things where you've got a biologist teaching right alongside somebody who has got a PhD in philosophy and English and communications. And I'll tell you what, it is fun. So I guess what I would hope is that in districts, especially a district this size, that the role of the administrators would be, let's not let our structures get in the way of our function. And if we can, as high schools or junior highs, come up with ways to get more of this integrative approach, I think you're going to find a lot of reward in that.
Good, thank you, John. I love that. Don't let structure get in the way. Thank you. Great answer. Okay, this next question will be directed to Brian, and then we will have one last question for all 3 of them to address. So, Brian, what entry-level skills are the most important to you as an employer? And do you feel like these skills are present or lacking in our high school graduates?
Thank you. So obviously from a science STEM related, I think math is the most important. So is that present? Thank you. Yeah, that's present, and we feel like there's a good job going on with math. The scores are going up. And the issue is that we're seeing math in general. We see kids in SLIC and UVU inside of our technician program that got through math, but they still don't know how to apply the math. And so they say they don't understand it, but yet when they get it applied into the theory of science or technology, then the light bulb comes on. But the instructors have to go back to algebra and trig and et cetera to go back and get those fundamentals. So the integrated approach, I think what John is saying is right, if there's a way to do that. The critical thinking, part of it is important. We've already talked about that. As far as our industry goes, they need to be able to look beyond today's environment and be able to have some creative thinking to say, what is next for us, right? You look at autonomous cars coming, all these things that are coming. If you haven't seen the commercial, we have a president of Intel. A woman asked him, will my 4-year-old drive a car? And he says, no. Well, that's a pretty bold statement, but things are changing. And so our kids, the kids that are today in K through 12, the technology they'll be working in our company and other companies is not even developed. And so they need to be critical thinking and being creative and those types of things.
Good. That's great feedback. Okay, this last question, because of time, is directed at all three of you. You probably came prepared with a lot of things that you wanted to say or you wondered if you would be asked. So I'd just like to each of you to take 2 minutes and just share. You've got hundreds of people in this audience. You've got all of the administrators from junior highs and high schools in our district. You've got counselors, language arts teachers, science and math teachers. What would you like to say to them? Each of you, please take about 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I think one of the things that come to mind is how do we work together? And from an industry standpoint, if you haven't been introduced to it yet, the app from the STEM Action Center is called STEM MX. I encourage you to go take a look at that, download it on your either phone or work, all the technology is there, but it will integrate business and the schools. If your school needs something donated, they need something in their classroom, they need somebody to come and talk in their classroom, then we have an opportunity as industry to go look and match that up and be able to show up with volunteers out of the classroom. We have 1,700 people, and I guarantee if I polled a lot of them, they're all from your schools, and they love to go back into the school and talk to the kids. We give them an opportunity to do that. So that collaborative effort between business and the schools is a must. The other thing is that I would say is, as I went to speak to eighth graders for Utah scholars, we ask in Utah scholars, what do you want to do when you grow up? And half the class will raise their hand and give me a few things, and it'll say, professional sports or marine biology is a popular one, or just an engineer. These kids need to have a goal on where they want to go, but the goal can be not necessarily an electrical engineer, but I want to be in the engineering family or the science family. It's okay for them to switch in that field, but they need to understand where they want to go and how to get there. The classic one that we look at in our industry, which we're lacking for, is technicians. The parents go to their kids and say, hey, I want you to 4-year degree. You need to go to this school. Yet they excel in auto shop, woodworking, rebuilding engines, welding. They're really hands-on. Those kids can make a great living as a technician. We have programs set up at SLIC and at UVU specifically for a 2-year degree. They can come in and make $70,000 after 2 years. People don't know that, and parents don't know that, but the world's changing where I believe the 4-year degree, and I'm not de-emphasizing that, but there's other avenues for your kids. And we just need to get those goals set up for the kids and steer them in the right direction.
Great. Thank you, Brian. John?
I echo everything that he said. Yes, I'm saying students should go to college, not necessarily. I think that they do need further training, whatever that's going to be. That's, I guess, one of my pet peeves about parents is, so in my notes I have this written down, the role of AP and concurrent enrollment courses in the state of Utah. I think parents have this idea that, well, if I run my child through a lot of AP or CE courses, that it speeds their time through college, and we're not necessarily seeing that. And I think a lot of it is exactly what Brian was saying. We're almost forcing this choice of going down a certain career path too early. And we've got students who are coming going, I took these in high school because they told me to do it, but I don't even want to do that. Can't I just go into agricultural science? And we're like, of course you can. But then I have parents calling me, what are you doing to my child? Are you turning him into a liberal? I'm like, no, they're wearing cowboy boots, and they help deliver sheep. It was awesome. But the harsh reality is this. Just over 70% of college students will change their major. They're going to change. How many of you changed your major in college at least once? Look at that. Stop making the kids make choices too early. Let them be kids. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't provide some of the experiences that we've been talking about. Highly integrative things. So I'll jump to my second biggest concern. While I agree, math is huge. We have a serious math problem in that they can't apply it to anything else. So case in point, even in our Jumpstart program, that integrated one, we had our statistics professor, right before I got there, spend multiple hours over days covering a simple t-test, how to do a t-test looking at the difference between two samples statistically. So then I came in thinking, oh, here comes the integration. This is going to be awesome. And I just said, look, I've got these moose data that I got from a friend of mine who does moose research. And these are when hunters would kill and tag these animals, they would weigh them. They wanted to see what region they were from. Here's the data. So I just put it up there. And I didn't digest it at all for them. I just put up a whole bunch of data. And I said, go at it. How are you going to do this? Clueless. They didn't know what to do next. And then even when I spurred them along a little bit, like, well, what could we look at? Well, maybe we could look at region. Okay, that's fun. So then we put it together, and you could sort of see some patterns coming out, and students are like, well, it kind of looks like Region 1 has the biggest moose. And I'm like, well, geez, if only there was a way we could compare two samples statistically to see if there really is a difference. I'd say it was that obvious. And they're like, yeah, I wonder, yeah, that's... I wonder how we could do that. And I seriously had to lead them through this. Like, I wonder if we could maybe do a t-test. Really? We can do a t-test on this? Yeah. And then the next question, how would I enter that into my calculator? That's got to stop. So I'm putting a lot of weight on our math teachers, I know. Math teachers, you've got to get out and start collaborating with the other classes. You're going to need to change how you do some stuff because what we're seeing is not all that great. The students are okay at doing calculus, but not when it's doing calculus to anything that means anything. And then they just die. And so again, I'll just toot that horn of integration. Somehow you've got to cross the silos and please just cross the hall and start working with somebody in communications or in math or in English or something. But helping students understand that application is huge.
Great, thank you, John. Good feedback. Tammy?
Thank you. I tweeted out the link to that survey, by the way. So if you're on Twitter, I've retweeted that. If you're not, just follow me, T. Pfeiffer. If you're not on Twitter, get on Twitter. And then if you don't follow me, and at least go and see on my account where you can take that survey. That would be very helpful. You know, I have a lot of things I could say, but I want to follow along what Brian and John have talked about. My son, who is just turned 23, is one of those students who didn't get math, didn't think he was going to succeed in college because he wasn't, college material because of the math alone. It was just the math. Through my work with the governor's office, I found out about the program at UVU that's the Electrical Automated Robotics program. IM Flash hires a lot of those students. It's a 2-year program, intensive math, actually. But they learn math for an hour and a half, and then they go out into the lab and they apply the math. And this son, who didn't think he could get, through college, graduated earlier this spring with an associate's degree, got hired by an engineering firm up in Logan, is doing some I watch he and my husband do these mathematical computations. It's like, where in the heck did you learn that? And he's doing very, very well. And he is, his business now will pay for him to finish a bachelor's degree in an engineering field or a tech management field. And it kind of exemplifies what Brian said and also what John's talking about, where students need some type of application, or they need to know why they're doing this. You are hearing the buzzwords of project-based learning, problem-based learning, experiential learning. Those are all names for the type of approach that I think we need to take more of in public education. Along with that, we have our CTE courses, and we are going to be putting more emphasis on CTE as a way for students to explore in high school what they may want to do. I know Alpine District, you have a very high graduation rate, average in the district, maybe one of the highest in the state, if not the highest. And what we're finding are students that our average graduation rate in the state is 85%. If you're a student that was a CTE concentrator, your graduation rate's 96%. Because they get hands-on in some type of a field or area. It doesn't mean that they're locked into that. In fact, what you'll see more of coming from our office next year is this idea of education being a roadway, and we've got a lot of on-ramps and off-ramps. My son took an on-ramp of a 2-year degree, and then he got off and is getting some real-life experience in an engineering company, and then he's going to get back on again and finish a bachelor's degree, and then he's going to get off again, and then he may get on again some future point in time and get an MBA. Maybe he wants to start his own business and wants the business background in addition to that. That's what we need to be thinking of, I think, when we think of, or when we're encouraging students to go to beyond high school. And students do need more education than just a high school graduation. What that looks like, though, should be very individualized, and it should be fluid. Getting a certificate, you're hearing us talk about stackable credentials. Getting that student who never thought that they could go to college, or maybe as a first-generation student going to college. There are so many pathways, and we need to make sure that we support all of those pathways, and not, as was the case when we were in high school, not you, but when we were in high school, it was you go to college or you don't. And there's still some of that stigma attached, but now there are a variety of pathways, and you'll see us focusing more on that. I think that maybe, to your point, John, some of the anxiety that we see in our students is this buildup of, I'm in college and I took these AP classes and these concurrent enrollment classes, and I'm supposed to be doing something, and I'm getting this degree, but I'm not sure it's what I want to do, but I've already paid for 3 years of college and I can't change my major, and I'm not really sure where I'm going. And so we're hoping to infuse public education and higher education with more work-based learning opportunities, so they get a feel for that, they get a taste of that. And I have to push back sometimes on people who want to do graduate from high school and you're already halfway there and you're locked into this certain area. Well, one of the reasons we want kids to take a CTE course in maybe health sciences is for them to find out that's not what they want to do. I had a visit with someone yesterday who started out to be a veterinarian, and he took one class after his general eds in college. Then he took a class and had to work in a animal shelter, and he said the smells and what they were doing to the animals, he says, I learned that is not what I wanted to be. You know, we hope that students can get a taste of those different experiences early on, and help guide them on their path so they don't have anxiety, that they don't have a lot of student debt, that they have companies who are now paying for them to get their degree if they will get some skills and come in and start working for that company as they learn what they want their future to be like. Thank you for what you do. I would be remiss if I didn't extend the governor's deep and sincere appreciation for what you do. It's a very difficult position to be in right now, to be a teacher in public education, an administrator in public education. It seems like you're taking a lot of arrows, and we're doing our best to stand in the way and take a few of those arrows for you. So help us help you by being involved with your policymakers, with my office, and your school board members, and I will help however we can. Again, thank you for what you do and for allowing us to be here.
Thank you, Tammy. Hey, let's give a hand for all three of our panelists, and we want to in turn thank you for what you do to contribute to our profession and to partner with us. Educators, thank you for being here. Tammy referred to some statistics. We are a great district. You are great teachers. You look at the data, and we're doing a great job. Thank you for recognizing that we can be even better than we are. And that's why we're here today, is to learn together how we can be even better. We know that although we're in the greatest profession in the whole world, we know that it's hard and it is stressful. And there's lots of late nights and there's lots of emotion. We want you to know how much we appreciate that. We know that you're working with students that are sometimes disrespectful and sometimes don't turn their homework in, and they're not working as hard as you know they have potential. And those are called teenagers. And that's who we are working with. And I want you to know that they are worth it. My 6 kids are worth it. Your kids are worth it. All 39,000 secondary students in this district are worth it. So thank you for what you do. And thanks again to our panelists.
Okay, before we move on to our next session, we have the great privilege now of hearing from one of my favorite people in this district, and this is Theron Murphy. Many of you know Theron intimately, and we are so excited to hear now the heart and soul of what not only these panelists have brought to our enlightenment, but also what this means even within our own homes and what we can do about it. So Theron Murphy will be our final speaker.
Okay, good morning and welcome. I would concur with the late Rick DeFore. I am in praise of American educators. So here's why. I come from a family of educators. It's given me a unique opportunity to view education from many different lenses. My father, a high school history and Spanish teacher, principal. My mom taught 9th grade English, 20 years. Many memories of red ink and stacks of papers. My younger brother, George, is an AP Spanish teacher, golf coach, and NHS advisor in Park City High School. My oldest brother, Dave, photo not shown, counselor at Mapleton Junior High School. My wife, Jody, just went back to work after 18 years as a computer specialty teacher at Grovecrest Elementary. My cousin Marnie is a 5th grade teacher at Westmore Elementary. And I taught Spanish and math and have followed in my father's footsteps. We love public education. We love educators. We thank you for what you have done for my children and for those of so many others. We're grateful for your passion, your skill set, your love, and care for all students, for making the unseemingly impossible possible. You are who matters and what matters. You are the difference. Try, if you can, to put on a parent lens, or that of a grandfather, a grandmother, an uncle, an aunt, or a neighbor, a lens for whichever child is closest to you. Capture that image, just like I have here. Capture that image in your mind. So here we go, a vision for learning, the why, a student and parent perspective. So we're going to run a little video here. Hundreds and even thousands of students pour into our classrooms and schools every day. They come from different cultures, backgrounds, and home environments. They come with varying degrees of knowledge, skills, and dispositions. Each and every student is as important as our own. What an amazing responsibility to educate, to inspire, to shape learning, to shape their future. So did you know we are fast approaching 40,000 students, 7-12, and 80,000 K-12? So whose children are we talking about here? Let's try something for just a second. Stand up and remain standing if you have a child in Alpine School District. Now, stay standing. Stand up if you have a niece or nephew in Alpine School District. If you have a grandson or granddaughter in Alpine School District. If you have a neighbor who has a son or daughter. You get the picture here. Thank you. So who are we talking about? We're talking about our children. For years, high school graduation has been a primary target. We envision a district where all students earn a high school diploma. We've come so far. As we consider what our students are facing once they graduate, a new image has started to make its way into the conversation. This idea of knowledge, skills, and dispositions. What? This vision for learning. For me personally, as this image started to surface, it had very little significance. Really, none at all. Until I started to see this vision for learning through a father's lens, or that of a parent. Essentially, I started to see the why. I started thinking of the hopes and dreams I have for my own children, for Taylor, for Aubrey, and for Will. This is Taylor. Taylor is a 2017 graduate from Timpanogos High School. And can I just say, Jody and I are so thankful for the knowledge, skills, and dispositions and direction Taylor received and acquired from wonderful teachers, coaches, counselors, and administrators while attending Oak Canyon and Timpanogos High School. Taylor now finds himself in a third world country, the Dominican Republic, struggling, fighting the elements, the mosquitoes, the humidity, battling to learn a language, and trying to communicate with a Brazilian companion who doesn't speak English. Skills and dispositions, communication, problem-solving, resiliency, empathy, grit, to name a few, are critical now and suddenly relevant, and will be as he moves forward in life. This is Aubrey. Maybe. That's Aubrey. Aubrey's a sophomore. You know what? I have great confidence Aubrey will not only leave her K-12 experience with essential knowledge, but she'll be able to access it as needed. We've come so far with essential standards. I wonder, though, will we be purposeful and deliberate with skill and disposition design within each content area so that Aubrey and others are better prepared to face life's challenges? Last but not least, this is Will. I'm certain everyone has a Will in the family. He and I are a lot alike. Maybe for this reason, he has my heart. You see, Will struggles with reading comprehension, math, and as we've heard today, anxiety. For Will, school has never come easy. Let me preface Will's sixth grade experience by acknowledging that he had a wonderful teacher and a school in Orchard Elementary that was just wonderful. So I want to be sensitive here. It's been a year or so ago. Will's now a seventh grader at Oak Canyon Junior High School. One day, Will came to me and said, "Hey, Dad, do you know what school stands for?" I said, "No, but tell me, Will." He said, "Dad, school stands for 6 crappy hours of our lives." Okay, I'm not making that up. He said, "Dad, school is so boring. Now, I didn't know how quite to take Will's creativity. Would definitely give him an A for creativity. Now, I'm an educator. Should I be offended? Should I brush it off? Was this merely an acronym created by Will and his friends? Or was there some truth to his thoughts? Well, how should I respond? I decided to further learn and explore, and here's what I learned. Will did a lot of individual work. He had very few learning partnerships. There was little relevancy in ownership. In fact, you know what? I can't remember a day to this day where Will's come home and said, "Hey, Dad, let me show you something. Let me show you what I'm learning in school." There was limited technology integration. And for a guy like Will, where technology is his world, and not that technology is an end-all, but there was limited technology use. A lot of surface-level knowledge and many, many worksheets, and I can attest for that because we did those together. Now, maybe Will is the only one who feels this way. Maybe this is on him. Maybe we should ask our children, our students, how would they describe school? Okay, I want you to take a second and close your eyes. Okay, this is where you participate. So everybody close your eyes for just a second. I want you to picture that grandson, that child, that granddaughter, the niece, the nephew, or the child closest to you. Capture again that image in your mind. Okay, so eyes are closed. Capture that image in your mind. And I'm going to ask you 3 questions. What learning experiences do you want for your child? Which skills and dispositions have they acquired? And how do you know? Well, I did the same activity for Will. Here's what I hope for Will. I want Will to develop confidence as a person and as a learner. I want him to be able to collaborate, to be able to work within a team setting, and to be able to express and articulate his ideas. But at the same time, I want him to be able to listen and learn from others. I want him to be able to communicate in all types of ways, to develop resiliency and a growth mindset. I want him to learn that failure is not such a bad thing, but that he can learn from it and grow. And I want him, most importantly, to feel safe and experience a sense of belonging to his classmates, to his teacher, and to his school, and a love for learning. Now, I'm not asking much, right? But I'm sure it's nothing more than what you desire, hope for the child closest to you. These desired outcomes will require 3 things: new learning partnerships, deep learning tasks, digital tools, and resources. And you know what? As these new learning experiences are offered, Will's acronym for school, it's going to change. It'll change to 6 crucial hours of our lives. Wouldn't it be great if every student, including yours, described school this way? And just like graduation, whatever the target, we'll hit it. We are that good. It's our deliberate pursuit of the right target that will be the difference for our children. It will happen because of what we do. Thank you and have a great day.
All right. Thank you so much for everyone that gave their perspectives, and we hope that you're capturing those insights, usually in the hashtag ASD Game Changers, which you could use throughout the day as well. Let me give you a preview of now we get to jump in and do. We've heard so many great things, but let's do something about it. So our morning breakout session will begin at 9:45. That will go to 12 o'clock. There will be a 10-minute break. There are wonderful snacks, drinks. You are taken care of. It'll be okay. Please see the numerous emails sent by Steve Jackson for your assigned room in C and D halls. If you were not able to register, there is a table out in the commons where you can get your room designation as well. Lunch will be at 12 o'clock to 12:45. Feel free to eat in the commons area, in the lunchroom. We are a large group today. So if you want to go to your designated room for the afternoon session, you are available to sit there as well. You will then have the opportunity to take all these insights and make ideas. Take the best of your collective learning today with your school meeting time from 12:50 to 2:45. There are room numbers listed on your processing agenda where you can see where you will meet with your administrators, with your departments, and with other colleagues. Finally, at 2:45, there will be opportunity to take an exit survey to share with us your big insights and also help us support you as you're going through about it. So go ahead and make your way to your classroom, and we look forward to working with you today.